So Dr. Sheftall, thank you so much for being with us. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, he's an MIT graduate with about 99 percentile in his class, professional golfer, a heart surgeon, plastic surgeon. I don't know, we could spend the balance of the day talking about his credentials and his background. I've grown to love him and appreciate him and thankful for him and his stand for truth and what he wants to say. So Dr. Sheftall, I'm going to throw the ball to you for just a moment. Give a few words of introduction and your thoughts, and especially talk about your trip to HHS and Robert Kennedy's division there, and what you found and what it said to you.
Thank you very much, Pastor Youngblood. I'd like to skip my talking about myself and use the time instead to thank you for being such an inspiration to so many people, including me, and also for having me on your show so many times. And I think you would agree that we've become very good friends.
Amen.
In addition
Absolutely.
to trying to help the public understand this horrible thing that was done to them.
Absolutely. Well, I'm thankful for you and for what God has done through you, and it's our prayer that God will continue to give you wisdom, strength, and health to carry on what you're doing. You've been a great inspiration to me personally, and I'm thankful for what you've been able to communicate to our listening audience of those that tune in each and every day to Let's Face the Issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We talked, you mentioned that I'd gone up to see my friend Dr. J. Bhattacharya. Yeah, it's hard to pronounce his name, and every senator that mentions it on TV gets it wrong. I'm amazed. The guy's an NIH director. And the reason we became such good friends is we did 24 hours of debates / discussions on COVID as it was happening. And I encourage people, if I can get a person that understands how to make segments, video clip segments for YouTube, I'm going to start publishing pieces of those 24 hours. But you can watch most of them on YouTube. Of course, Susan Wojcicki, who is the CEO of YouTube, took a bunch of them down with the censorship program that they had going over at Google, of which YouTube is part of, as you know.
Yes.
Which was a terrible thing to do because it was two well-meaning doctors discussing COVID to help educate the public, and she's taken our videos down, which was amazing to me. I've never been censored quite so severely, but I did get censored terribly in general by YouTube with shadow banning and everything else that I went through. But anyway, Dr. Bhattacharya and I became good friends, and he invited me up to Washington about, I guess it's been 2 months now.
2 months now.
Yeah, because I spent some time out at Stanford, as you know, to try to work up my illness. But we, as usual, we sat down for lunch and dinner. We spent the whole day together after I arrived, and we jumped right in with debating the current issues. We almost can't help ourselves.
Did you tell him that I recommended you that you join the staff up there?
Oh yeah, that'd be lovely. After I get well, I think I might try to nudge him a little bit and get a job up there.
That's good.
Because we need people that have a different point of view, and I'll talk about that later. But Dr. Bhattacharya, of course, is in a very responsible position now. And so when I told him that I could prove there was no SARS-2 virus, he immediately said, well, I'm not willing to go that far yet. So we had the same old friction that we always had. Me making a comment, making a claim, let's say, and then proving it. And that's sort of the way we set up our 24 hours together. So if you watch them, it's issue after issue of me proving my point and him trying to disprove it. So it was a lot of fun. We're such good friends. We had a great day. Then I got
mention that. Let me jump in for a moment. Your book called Sanctioned, The COVID Murders.
Yes, sir.
Give our listeners, some that may not have heard it, a little thumbnail sketch on the intent of the book and what the book really is intended to do, what it says.
The intent of the first volume, now the whole book is 2,000 pages long, and I've got 6 volumes that are going to come out. The first volume has come out already, and it's available. People can pick it up on Amazon or whatever.
We have it at CTU bookstore also.
Correct, thank you. And the first volume basically explains to everybody that there was no SARS-2 virus in the way that they think of it, as being something that was an infectious disease that traveled all over the world. All of that was utter nonsense. The entire thing was made up. And it's very, very easy for me to prove it. which is surprising. It's a simple proof, which I will go into in just a minute when our guest asks me a question about the vaccine. But it's all proved in the book, and the people, the perpetrators that tried to force this fraud on the public are named and even pictured in some cases, if you remember, Pastor. And I don't really pull any punches. I call them stochastic murderers, because stochastic murder is when you know that a scheme is going to kill a certain number of people, such as a vaccine. It's going to cause so many deaths, and there's no benefit of the vaccine. Then you have committed stochastic murder. Stochastic means you can look at something statistically, but you can't predict it individually, precisely. In other words, you may know that 10% of the population is going to die because of a vaccine, but you don't know which 10% it is. But you still committed murder if there's no benefit to the vaccine,
Right.
knowing that 10% of the population are going to die from it. Okay, so that's what I meant by stochastic murder. It's a term that I coined there. But remember, the vaccine itself, just to review, is based on the genome of the virus. Of course it is, because it's injected into you, and it asks your cells to produce the spike protein, ostensibly so that you'll make an immune response to it, make antibodies to it, and it'll prevent the virus from getting you the second time, because the antibodies and the activated T cells are laying in wait to attack the second time you ingest the virus, right?
Correct.
The problem is the genome was fake. So they based the vaccine on a genome that doesn't exist. And I think I went into some detail a few months ago when we were together, explaining why the genome was fraudulently determined. And I'll be happy to summarize that again if you want me to.
In a few moments, let's do that, but right at the present time, what you're saying is then, we were lied to about the COVID vaccination, but even prior to that, we were lied to about what is COVID. And so as a result of that, the COVID vaccination, are you saying the COVID vaccination had no efficacious value? Or are you saying the COVID vaccination was deadly and not beneficial at all? They claimed 87 to 98% efficacy for those that took the shot. How do you work through that with the listener that may be listening and say, well, I was told by my doctor that I need to take the shot, the vaccination. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I would say that the doctor was misinformed, naive, or very lazy, and didn't look into it himself.
Did money have anything to do with it?
Yes, the doctors were bribed, for lack of a better word, for vaccinating their patients, and we have lots of proof of that. Ascent did it in Kentucky. Dr. Massey, not Dr. Massey, Representative Massey, Thomas Massey, discovered an internal memo that explained how much extra money the doctors were going to get by vaccinating their population.
Even not recommending it, whether they did or not, recommending it, they got paid.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible what went on. I mean, this is why my book is 2,000 pages long. There is so much fraud that went into this, it's unbelievable. I mean, we got people buying, like Bill Gates, buying shares in the vaccine before the virus had even been discovered.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Far back as 2015.
Yes, but in 2000, on August 31st of 2019, he bought shares of BioNTech. It wasn't even publicly traded at the time. And then in December, they supposedly discovered the virus. I mean, that's absurd.
Absolutely. Dr. Pierce, you were vitally interested in this subject, and I'm thankful that you're with us today. What questions do you have for Dr. Sheftall?
Well, I was interested mainly in the vaccine. You know, I had a physician in the church and a personal friend who at first, when we were trying to decide what to do about closing church or keeping church open and all the information getting from the state, you can't meet, you got to do everything video, that sort of. He said, well, herd mentality, our herd process will take care of this. Enough people will get it, it'll all go away.
Herd immunity.
Herd immunity, yeah. And it wasn't 3 weeks after that he came back and said, no, herd immunity is not going to take care of it. We had put together a little committee to decide exactly how to go about doing it. And so at first he said, herd immunity will take care of it. We don't need to do anything. Then they started pushing the vaccine. And of course, I was getting ready to go to Israel, and at that time they weren't letting anybody in Israel that had not been vaccinated. So I took the vaccination and have nothing but regretted it since then. Nobody else in my family would take it. They said, no, we're not going to do it. They were smarter than me. And so after reading Dr. Sheftall's book, it really makes me think, we need to be more inquisitive of our doctors about the side effects and what all goes on with this. And my question for Dr. Reed was, since I had the vaccine, what's the half-life of the vaccine, or is it something that's permanently going to be in my body and I'm going to have a part of it caused inflammation of the gastrointestinal tract as well as the pericardium? Is that something that I'm going to be fighting from now on, or is that something that wears off after a time? Or how harmful is the vaccine? Is it worse than the supposed COVID?
Yes, the supposed COVID is a rebranding of other diseases, primarily respiratory diseases like the flu. And you might say, wait a minute, now how can you rebrand a disease? And it's very, very simple. When a patient comes in with upper respiratory symptoms and you cannot tell it's established, there are no differences in the symptoms and the presentation of the patient between COVID, RSV, and the flu, what we traditionally call the flu. You can't tell the difference when the patient comes in. You can even lose your sense of taste and smell with the flu. That's all in all the medical books. So don't say just because you lost your sense of taste it had to be COVID. That's not true. The way they do a rebranding is a patient comes in with those symptoms, and because the hospitals were getting a lot of extra money, which I'm sure you know about, Dr. Youngblood, for diagnosing COVID, for putting people in the ICU, for putting them on a ventilator.
Just for the PPE.
Yes, well, the hospitals were getting extra money to diagnose, test for, put them in the ICU, put them on a ventilator, and even put them on the death certificate for COVID. They got a lot of money for it.
Just relying on the death certificate.
Correct.
Yes.
And if you were getting $38,000 to put a COVID patient on a ventilator, and would you test for the flu? Or would you test for COVID? You test for COVID only because you want to get that extra money. And that's what was done. So a lot of patients that had the flu the year before, the number I actually have memorized because it's so important, was 38 million patients worldwide.
For flu.
They had the flu in 2019.
Yes.
The number of people that had it in 2020 was 1,500. That's a ratio of 25,333. That's how much they decreased the flu in 1 year. And of course, all those cases were called COVID.
Yes.
So anybody that wants to debate me on whether the disease was rebranded is in deep trouble.
Yes.
With that statistic. Okay, so that's what rebranding means. So in other words, COVID did not exist because SARS-CoV-2 did not exist. And let me just supply you with a little bit of proof of that, because that's really important. How could SARS-CoV-2 not even exist? Well, they haven't found it in a single person at any time anywhere in the world yet. They have not found it. What I mean by that is, initially, if you remember, Dr. Fauci and company were saying that it could stay on stainless steel for 72 hours.
Could blow man off the ocean waves.
No, coming out of someone's mouth. It would get on stainless steel and it would be sitting there where you could pick it up with your fingers or something for 72 hours. We haven't found a single viral particle yet. And here's what's ridiculous about that. He had the whole world wiping down their groceries and their countertops all day long, because he said it could live on stainless steel and so forth. And all of that was complete nonsense. Utter nonsense. But let me tell you a few more things about why SARS-CoV-2 doesn't exist. There are 3 ways, and I'll try to say this quickly before the break. There are 3 ways that virologists prove a virus exists, quote unquote, over proof, I mean. Number 1, with cytopathic effects. But we've already done experiments where we ran the cytopathic effect experiment without adding the specimen from a person, and they get the same cytopathic effects. And I'll explain the details of that later if you want me to. Number two is photographic evidence, where an electron microscope picture is taken of the cytopathic effects with the particles leaving the cells, the monkey kidney cells that the cytopathic effects experiments are performed on, and God knows why they use monkey kidney cells when it's a human lung disease, okay? And the photographic evidence, even from the Journal of Virology now, says there's no way to tell the difference between a virion, which is a viral particle, and an exosome, which is a particle that is always there in the presence when there's cell destruction. And the Journal of Virology has a vested interest in proving that viruses exist, and they say they can't find it. And then the third way that they prove virus exists is by sequencing the genome of the virus. And I'll talk about any detail you want about genetics. That's kind of my specialty in medicine. But they are not able to sequence the genome of anything that exists.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take the top of the hour news break. Then we'll continue our conversation with Dr. Sheftall and our other guests. Greg Youngblood is with us, and Dr. Tommy Pierce from the Tower Oaks Baptist Church in Greenville, Tennessee. Hang in there. Don't turn your dials. We'll be right back right after the news.